Hi, this is Simon Candy from Acoustic Guitar Lessons Online.net, and in today's video you're going to learn how to improve your rate of progress on guitar. So in other words, how to get better at practicing guitar. Practice takes practice, so it's well worth your investment of time into learning how to be more effective when sitting down to practice guitar, because the result of that is that you're going to improve at a much faster rate. In this lesson, I'm joined by guitar practice expert Mike Philippov from practiceguitarnow.com to discuss and demonstrate effective strategies for improving your practice. So Mike is the go-to guy for practicing guitar. He's helped thousands of people learn how to adapt and adopt better strategies and methods for practicing guitar so that you get more improvement out of the time you invest into playing. You're going to learn how to know exactly what to work on from one practice session to the next. Not everything is going to require the same amount of time. And speaking of time, you're also going to learn really effective strategies for practicing when you have none of it. And I'm sure we can all relate to that. Plus, the secret to remaining fully focused when practicing guitar at all times, and a whole lot more. So let's get to it.
And I actually have a specific way. It's one of the next points here for how to measure, how to know if your practicing is working in a very simple way. When you're practicing with the metronome, what almost every teacher tells you is start slow. Well, we already talked about what that's slow is not the best way to describe it, but whatever the tempo is, start at tempo, XYZ, and increase the metronome BPM slowly or in small increments. I do not like that, small increments, because it makes it very hard to know if it makes it very hard to spot any technique breakdowns. Because if you increase the tempo by 2 BPM or 5 BPM or even 10 BPM in some cases, any little flaw that pops up, you don't notice it just yet. And so because you don't notice it, A, you're wasting time practicing incorrectly, and B, it's not clear to you why then all of a sudden when you increase the tempo enough by 20 or 30 BPM, you hit that wall, that speed wall, or the fluency wall, accuracy, and it's not clean anymore. It's not easy to play. You feel tense all of a sudden. Well, that's something that happened like 7 steps ago, and you could have caught that earlier by simply taking bigger metronome jumps. I'm a fan of doing that. So if you start at 60 BPM, instead of going to 66 when you're increasing the tempo, jump to like 78, and it may feel mentally a little bit like jarring, like holy crap, it's noticeably faster now, but it shouldn't feel physically harder. You shouldn't have any drastic technique changes. You shouldn't feel drastically more tense or even really tense in any noticeable way. If you are, that's your easy to tell red flag. Okay, what exactly am I noticing that I didn't notice at the previous tempo? And then with that clarity in mind, you can go back to 60 or whatever your starting point was, and refine that thing that you were able to notice when you jumped to 78. So I find that to be a very helpful way to gauge your progress as you practice.
Yeah, great. That's interesting. I hadn't really thought about that before. So larger jumps to cut the wasting time on small little increments that aren't going to really reveal too much.
Of clarity right away, because if it takes you 10 steps to get from 60 to 78, by that time you don't even notice what started to happen earlier on. But if you do it right away, it's like it catches you.
And then you would back off appropriately.
Then you back off appropriately to the fastest tempo of where you got that thing under control, and then you can work on refining that from there. Almost everybody wishes they could practice more, and everybody's busy with work and family and whatnot, but almost all of us have time when we could do some practicing, but we don't have the guitar in our hands, like while driving to and from work, while you're standing in line at the grocery store, while you're taking a shower, whatever. And so what I recommend to do is not necessarily to make more progress with less practice, but just make more progress and find more practice time that you didn't realize you had. Every, let's say, Sunday night, think about what you're going to have going on in the upcoming week. And usually most of us have the same routine of what we do throughout the day. And find those moments when you typically are just wasting time, idle time moments, as I like to call them, and plan something in advance to practice during those moments. So if you drive 30 minutes to and from the office every day, 5 times a week, okay, what can you do in your car? It could be listening to some music theory thing, or practicing ear training, quizzing yourself on the fretboard, all kinds of things. The point isn't to find the best thing, it's to use that time in some intelligent way to make yourself better. So make a list of those things and you plan your practicing away from the guitar practice routine exactly the same way as you would plan your hands-on practicing throughout the week. And that, I mean, it should be obvious that even if you improve nothing else about how you practice or what you practice, you almost can't help but get better. So recommend everybody does this.
You also suggesting, I'm sure you would agree with this, but you also suggesting, because often I will say, and I do this myself, if it's like, there's 5 minutes between one thing you're doing and another thing, you got your guitar there, you can just pick up and practice something in that 5 minutes. So you're talking along those lines too, right? As opposed to just practicing away from the guitar.
Right, exactly. So you want to use, you can get a lot done in just 5 minutes, heck, even in 1 minute, if you really know exactly what needs to happen, what problem you're trying to solve, and you just drill it for 1 minute. You do 3 repetitions of a chord change. If you do it the right way, you're going to get better. I mean, it's a little bit better, but still better. So yeah, every little bit helps in that sense.
Even though you're going to practice, for more than 5 minutes at a time, a lot of the time, those 5 minute sessions are, if you plan, as you say, you know you've got a direct, specific thing you want to do in that 3 or 5 minutes, it's going to be very focused practice. And if you did that 20 times in a week, that's an hour, but that's an hour split into 3 minutes, which is probably going to be better than an hour in one.
Yes.
So it's really good for focus because it's, only 3 minutes.
What you just said, Simon, is really good. Splitting up an hour into 5 minutes, one of the reasons why it typically works better for most people is because every time you start over that new 5 minute chunk, your brain is fresh. It had a bit of a break between the sessions or between the 5 minute chunks. So you're able to focus more and get more out of those 5 minutes. That being said, you don't necessarily have to separate the time into 5 minute chunks if you don't want to. And the way you can practice, let's say for 30 minutes at a time and not have your brain go on mental autopilot or just get fatigued from practicing the same thing for too long, is to use what I call context expanding variations. So the context thing is just the scale. Scale is the example. The context thing is what you practice. It could be a scale, could be part of a song, could be part of a solo, a chord change, whatever the thing is. The item that you practice, the thing, that's the context. And context expanding variations means you change a very subtle thing about how you play it. It could be as incredibly simple as moving the C major scale to F major, or something as obvious as that, or changing from C major to C harmonic minor. You're changing the scale or changing where you play it, or change the dynamics with which you pick it, or change the rhythm, play the triplets as 16th notes or 16th notes as triplets. Maybe you play it legato instead of picking it. That maybe is a little bit too much of a variation, but it still could work. And the idea behind that, the reason why you do it, is to jolt your brain out of complacency, out of hearing the same monotonous thing over and over, 100 times, 200 times, because that's what causes this mental fatigue and going on autopilot. But creating these context expanding variations is a good way to get you out of that and get you paying attention more. It's sort of like when you're driving your car and you're on the highway and you're going, 200 miles and it's just the same thing for 200 miles, it gets really monotonous and boring. But if you're taking, the country roads and the scenery changes with every turn you make, you're way more focused, you're way more alert. And that's, going back to guitar now, is how you stay more focused for a longer period of time without getting bored and thus getting more out of the time you're able to put into it.
If you like this video, you'll love this ebook complete with video examples called 10 melodic fingerpicking patterns you can learn in 10 minutes or less. Do you struggle to make the fingerpicking patterns you learn on guitar sound like music? Perhaps it's because you believe in one or more of these fingerpicking pattern myths. 1. You need to know a lot of patterns to have your fingerpicking sound musical. 2. Only advanced fingerpicking patterns sound musical. Easy patterns are too basic to sound any good. Or 3. there is a magic pattern out there somewhere that once found will finally have your finger picking sound the way you want it to. None of these myths are true. This is because finger picking patterns alone are not musical. They're technical. It's what you do with the patterns that will determine how musical they sound. In this ebook, you learn how to make the most boring fingerpicking patterns sound amazing instantly. Plus, the simple trick to make advanced fingerpicking patterns easier to play. And the thumb and one finger trick that's so simple and will have your fingerpicking sounding pro in no time. Click the link in the description below this video and download your free ebook complete with video examples, 10 melodic fingerpicking patterns you can learn in 10 minutes or less. You'll have it in your inbox within minutes. Let me know in the comments below what acoustic guitar topics you'd like to see covered in future videos. I'd love to hear from you. I read the comments and I do replies, so don't be shy, drop us a line. A lot of the things I have suggested to me do become videos. So if you want something, ask and you may just receive it. If you like this video, then hit that like button, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, and of course hit the notification bell button so YouTube can tell you when I've released a new video, which is every single week. Thank you so much for being here. This is Simon Candy from acousticguitarlessonsonline.net. As always, I really do appreciate you taking the time to check out my videos. I hope they help you out, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.